You're walking through life when suddenly it happens. Your eyes meet someone and it's as if the universe stops for a moment. Your heart recognizes them before your mind can even process what's happening. It's them, the person your soul has been searching for all along. But there's a problem. You found each other at completely the wrong time. Maybe you're in entirely different phases of life, or circumstances simply won't allow this connection to flourish. And then you find yourself asking, with a breaking heart, why would the universe do this? Why awaken in you the absolute certainty that you found your person precisely when you can't be together? Is this karma, or is there a much greater purpose behind this seemingly impossible encounter? Carl Jung spent his entire life studying these meetings that seem orchestrated by a higher intelligence, and what he discovered can completely change how you view this painful situation you're experiencing. In this exploration, you'll understand why finding the right person at the wrong time isn't a mistake of fate, but one of the most important experiences your soul can have. So stay with me until the end, and you'll comprehend that this encounter, however painful it might be, could be exactly what you need to become the person capable of living true love when the right moment arrives. And if you find value in this content, please share it with others who might need to hear this message. Before we dive into the complexity of finding your person at the wrong time, we need to understand what this sensation of instant recognition that you felt really means. Because we're not talking about simple physical attraction or mental compatibility. We're talking about something much deeper and more mysterious. Jung believed that certain people enter our lives carrying what he called archetypal energy. These are encounters that transcend coincidence and touch deep layers of the unconscious. When you look at that person and feel like you've known them for lifetimes, when there's an inexplicable familiarity that goes beyond any logic, you're experiencing what Jung would call soul recognition. But here's the crucial point that most people don't understand. This recognition doesn't happen to form conventional relationships immediately. It happens to awaken something in you that was sleeping, to activate parts of your soul that needed to be touched by this specific energy, to initiate a process of internal transformation that might not happen any other way. That's why the timing seems so cruel, because the universe isn't interested in your emotional convenience. It's interested in your spiritual evolution. And sometimes, the greatest evolution happens precisely when we're forced to love without possessing, to recognize without having, to feel deeply without being able to act on those feelings immediately. Have you ever noticed how this story repeats itself in the real world? How many times have we heard about two hearts that recognize each other but at the wrong time? Perhaps you know someone like this. Perhaps you've lived it. People who found each other when they couldn't stay, had to follow different paths, grow, mature, and only after months, or even years, did they reunite more conscious, more ready, and decided to live the love that, back then, they still didn't know how to sustain. If you've lived or witnessed a love like this, please share in the comments. I really want to know what you think about it. This type of story isn't coincidence. It's life respecting the rhythm of the soul, because certain encounters aren't about the now. They're seeds planted to bloom when the soil is fertile. When you find your person at the wrong moment, a part of you awakens to possibilities of love you didn't even know existed. You discover you're capable of feeling connections that transcend the physical, mental, and emotional. You access levels of recognition that operate on a spiritual frequency. And this, even being painful, is a rare gift that not all souls receive in this lifetime. The first question that arises when we experience this is always the same. Why now? Why did this person appear precisely when I can't be with them? Why did the universe awaken such deep feelings in me at a moment when they can only cause pain? This wrong moment you're experiencing, what you're calling injustice, a mistake of destiny, is just the universe functioning exactly as it always has. You just haven't recognized it yet. There's an ancient law that explains this. Few people know it, but it's one of the keys to understanding why things don't always happen when we want them to. This law is called the law of rhythm. It's part of a set of principles called the 7 Hermetic Laws, described in an ancient book called the Kybalion. And this law of rhythm basically says this: everything has flow and ebb. Everything has its tides. Everything rises and falls. Everything moves like a pendulum. In other words, nothing in life is constant all the time. Day becomes night. The tide rises, then falls. Relationships work this way too, especially soul relationships. And here's where the most important part for you to understand comes in. When you find the right person at the wrong time, it might just be low tide. The connection exists. You feel it. But the time isn't yet favorable for it to flourish. And this doesn't mean it isn't real. Low tide doesn't deny the ocean. It just shows that something is organizing itself beneath the surface. Maybe you're both going through internal processes that still need to mature. Maybe you don't yet have the emotional, spiritual, or practical structure to sustain this love. And this is what the law of rhythm teaches. Things don't happen in your emotional time. They happen in the time of maturity. And if you try to force the wave before its time, it breaks. But if you respect the cycle and continue growing, the right wave comes. And when it comes, it will have the strength to carry you both together without further separation. This law is here to remind you that the universe doesn't want to frustrate you. It just wants to ensure you don't live an immature version of a love that was made to last. Jung also had a revolutionary perspective on this. He believed the unconscious has its own temporal intelligence. It knows when you're ready for certain experiences, even when your conscious mind screams it's not the right moment. And often, the best moment for a transformative encounter is precisely when it seems impossible. Think about the spiritual alchemy that Jung studied deeply. The alchemical process doesn't seek easy or comfortable transformations. It requires substances to be subjected to intense pressure, extreme heat, and processes that might seem destructive on the surface, but are actually creating something new and precious. The encounter with your person at the wrong moment is exactly this type of alchemical process applied to your emotional life. The apparent impossibility of the moment serves specific purposes that your soul knows, but your ego can't yet comprehend. First, it breaks your illusions about how love should work. It forces you to question whether you truly understand what unconditional love is. Second, it prevents you from hiding in the comfort zone of relationships based only on convenience or the need to not be alone. When you find your person but can't be with them immediately, you're forced to examine with brutal honesty what it really means to love someone. You discover if you can desire their happiness even when that happiness doesn't include you. You learn if you're capable of honoring their journey even when they're walking in a different direction from yours. You develop the rare capacity to love without possessing, to connect without controlling, to recognize without demanding. Jung observed that the greatest psychological transformations happen when we're forced to maintain paradoxes in balance. To love deeply but accept separation. To recognize destiny but respect timing. To feel the connection but honor circumstances. This tension between what we feel and what we can have creates what he called the transcendent function, the capacity to sustain opposites until a third possibility emerges. The universe isn't cruel when it orchestrates these encounters. It's surgical. This experience was designed specifically to awaken capacities in you that wouldn't develop under normal circumstances. Maybe you need to learn that your worth doesn't depend on being chosen by someone, or discover that you can be happy even while feeling longing, or develop deep faith in divine timing, even when all your instincts scream for control and immediacy. The person you found is also part of this same spiritual design. They have their own lessons to learn in the current timing. Maybe they need to honor commitments they made before finding you, or complete growth cycles that are only possible in the situation they're in now, or develop aspects of themselves that only emerge in present circumstances. When you understand this deeply, you stop seeing the situation as personal injustice and begin to see it as part of a larger process where everyone involved is growing toward their best version. But let's be honest about the emotional reality of living this. Finding your person at the wrong moment is one of the most challenging experiences the human heart can face. It's like being thirsty in the desert and finding an oasis you can see but can't reach. The pain is real, intense, and often seems unbearable. Jung understood that certain emotional experiences are so intense, they require specific strategies to not become destructive. The first and most important is to distinguish between feeling and acting based on feelings. You can and should completely honor the feelings this person awakens in you. They're valid, sacred, and deserve to be recognized in all their intensity. But recognizing feelings doesn't mean you should act to try to change their circumstances or force a situation that isn't aligned. True love, paradoxically, sometimes expresses itself through conscious containment, through the capacity to love so deeply that you accept what's best for the beloved, even when this doesn't coincide with what you'd like to happen. The second strategy is developing what Jung would call emotional continence, the capacity to sustain intense feelings without exploding or repressing them. This means creating healthy rituals to process and honor these feelings. It could be through writing, art, music, movement, meditation. Your emotional energy needs constructive channels of expression, especially when it can't be directed toward the person who inspired it. A powerful technique is writing letters you'll never send. Express everything you feel without filters. Tell about the recognition you felt, about the dreams that arose, about the pain of not being able to be together now. Then, if you feel called to, write responses as if you were them, trying to lovingly channel their perspective on the situation. This process helps integrate different aspects of the experience and develops more mature understanding about the complexity of what you're living. It's also crucial to maintain healthy social connections during this period. The tendency when we live this type of love is to isolate ourselves, feeding fantasies about future possibilities or getting lost in infinite analyses of every gesture or word exchanged. Balanced relationships with other people help maintain perspective and not lose touch with present reality. Practice conscious presence when you're in their presence. Instead of getting lost in fantasies about what could be or analyzing every interaction searching for hidden signs, simply be present. Appreciate the rare opportunity to be near this special energy without trying to transform it into something it can't be in the current moment. Jung also emphasized the importance of developing a spiritual practice that connects you with something greater than this specific situation. It could be meditation, prayer, philosophical study, volunteer work, any activity that reminds you that you're part of something much greater than your personal love story. Finding your person at the wrong moment is, ironically, one of the greatest opportunities for spiritual growth that life can offer. It's a chance to develop soul qualities that are rare in current humanity, and that prepare you for much more mature and deep forms of love. The first required growth is developing detached love. Most people confuse love with possession, passion with need, connection with dependence. In this situation, you're called to completely purify your concept of love. You must learn to truly love, to desire their happiness, even when it doesn't include you. Celebrate their growth even when it takes them away. Honor their journey even when it follows different directions from yours. This isn't passive resignation or self-sacrifice. It's the highest form of love that exists. It's loving as the soul loves, without personal agenda, without need for return, without expectations of reciprocity. It's loving for the pure pleasure of loving, for the privilege of recognizing beauty and light in another soul. The second growth is developing divine patience, the capacity to trust the universe's timing, even when it completely contradicts your personal desires. Jung believes certain lessons can only be learned through conscious waiting. You're learning that some of life's most important things can't be forced, controlled, manipulated, or rushed, no matter how intense our will. This patience isn't passivity. It's an active quality of trust that continues growing and preparing while waiting. It's like a tree that develops deep roots during winter, knowing spring will come at the right time. You use this period to become the person capable of sustaining the love you feel when circumstances align. There's also the growth of emotional integrity. In a situation where it would be easy to justify questionable behaviors trying to interfere in their life, creating situations to force proximity, manipulating circumstances for your benefit, you're called to maintain your highest values. This strengthens your character in ways no other situation could. Jung emphasized the importance of developing the transcendent function, the capacity to maintain psychological tensions without resolving them prematurely through impulsive actions. In this situation, you learn to live with ambiguity, uncertainty, and paradoxes. This is an advanced psychological capacity that serves all areas of life. Another crucial growth is finding meaning in conscious suffering. Jung believed that suffering accepted and integrated, as opposed to suffering avoided or denied, is profoundly transformative. You're learning that not all pain needs to be eliminated immediately, that some pains carry spiritual gifts that can only be accessed through complete experience. The experience also develops universal compassion. When you go through this type of situation, you develop deep understanding about the complexity of human relationships and life's timing. You stop judging people who are in complicated situations, who make apparently wrong choices, or who live impossible loves. This expanded compassion is a gift you offer the world. Finally, there's the growth of emotional self-sufficiency. You learn that your happiness and completeness can't depend on specific external circumstances. Even loving this person deeply, you develop an inner source of satisfaction and purpose that's independent of any relational situation. The question that won't be silenced is obvious. Can this love become reality someday? Will you be able to be together when timing aligns? Jung would say this question is poorly formulated. The issue isn't when or how, but if you'll be prepared to recognize and embrace any possibility the universe presents. The first principle about divine timing is that it operates according to logic very different from human logic. If a union is destined to happen, it will happen when both people are spiritually prepared to sustain that level of connection. This could be months, years, decades, or even never in this life. And all these possibilities are equally valid from a spiritual viewpoint. Jung observed that trying to force synchronicities is impossible. They arise when there's alignment between personal consciousness and universal flow. In the context of this situation, this means a union can only happen when both people have completed sufficient internal growth to sustain a mature relationship based on mutual recognition, not neurotic needs. If they're in other circumstances currently, there are lessons they need to learn in that present situation. It could be about honoring commitments, about developing specific aspects of their personality, about completing growth cycles that are only possible in the current context. Trying to interfere in this process is like trying to rush the ripening of fruit. You might manage to remove it from the tree, but it won't be ripe. The correct role for you during this period is to focus completely on your own growth and preparation. Jung emphasized that we can only attract what we vibrate with energetically. If you want a mature and conscious union, you first need to become someone capable of offering and sustaining that type of relationship. This means healing your own problematic relational patterns, developing your career, your talents, your unique contribution to the world, learning to be genuinely happy alone, to find purpose independent of romantic validation, cultivating qualities like patience, compassion, wisdom, integrity, and faith. Jung believed that when two people are truly ready to unite, the universe removes obstacles naturally. This can happen in surprising ways that neither could have predicted or planned. But trying to force these changes through manipulation, pressure, or interference usually results in more complications and delays. If changes happen naturally in their life, it's fundamental that they're not the result of your pressures. They need to reach their own conclusions about what's best for their journey. Your function is simply to be available emotionally and spiritually for any possibility that arises, without expectations or demands. But here's a truth Jung would insist on highlighting. Physical union might not be the final objective of this experience. Some soul connections come to teach about transcendent forms of love that don't require conventional relationships. The spiritual bond between you might be more powerful and transformative maintained on an energetic level than it would be in a premature physical union. The definitive test is your capacity to genuinely desire their happiness, even if they choose paths that don't include you. If you can love without possessing, support without controlling, and find joy in their joy independent of its source, then you've developed the type of love these special connections are destined to teach. Regardless of how your specific situation resolves, Jung would say that the experience of finding your person at the wrong moment has already transformed you irreversibly. You're no longer the same person you were before this encounter. And this transformation, not necessarily physical union, might be the true gift this experience came to offer. The first transformation is the radical expansion of your capacity to love. You discovered it's possible to feel a love so deep and pure that it doesn't need possession to exist. This frees you from neurotic patterns in all your future relationships. You'll never again confuse love with control, passion with emotional dependence, or connection with need. The second transformation is developing a much more mature relationship with suffering. Jung observed that the capacity to find meaning in pain is one of the marks of psychological evolution. You learned that not all suffering is useless, that some pains carry precious spiritual gifts that can only be accessed through complete experience. There's also the transformation of your relationship with time and control. You experience directly that some of life's most important things can't be forced or controlled. This develops a quality of surrender and trust that serves all areas of your experience. Jung emphasized that archetypal experiences leave permanent marks on the psyche. The encounter with your person activated aspects of your personality that will remain awakened forever. You now have access to levels of sensitivity, intuition, and spiritual understanding you didn't have before. The transformation also includes a deeper connection with your life mission. Many people report that after encounters of this nature, even when they don't result in immediate union, clarities about purpose, career, and unique contribution to the world emerge. It's as if the experience awakened them to aspects of themselves that were sleeping. There's a quality of spiritual initiation in this experience. You passed through an emotional trial by fire and emerged with expanded capacities, This often leads to a sense of spiritual responsibility, the perception that you have something unique to offer based on what you learned. The final transformation is perhaps the most important. The capacity to recognize and honor sacred connections wherever they appear. You'll no longer be a person who goes through life inattentive to synchronicities, meaningful encounters, or growth opportunities disguised as difficulties. This experience taught you that true love is greater than circumstances, more powerful than obstacles, and more permanent than physical relationships. This knowledge isn't theoretical, you experienced it directly. And this changes everything about how you relate to the world and to people. If you've made it this far, you've already understood that finding your person at the wrong moment wasn't a cruel mistake of fate. It was an invitation to a form of spiritual evolution that few humans have the courage or opportunity to experience. Carl Jung dedicated his life to understanding how the psyche operates through paradoxes and apparent impossibilities. The events we most resist are frequently those we most need for growth. The situation you're living isn't a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be embraced with confidence and reverence. Your person may have appeared at the wrong moment, because you both need to learn specific lessons that are only possible in this temporal configuration. They may be learning about honoring commitments, about developing specific aspects of themselves, about completing processes that are only possible in their current context. You're learning about unconditional love, divine patience, faith without guarantees, and the capacity to love beyond ego limitations. The universe never wastes experiences. Every moment of pain you felt, every night you questioned the meaning of it all, every day you chose to love without possessing all of this, is building qualities in you that will serve forever. You're becoming someone capable of loving more purely, more freely, more transcendently. Maybe physical union will happen at the right time, maybe not. But the spiritual union that already exists between you is permanent and can't be broken by external circumstances. This connection transcends this life, this time, these apparent limitations. What matters isn't whether you'll get your person. What matters is who you're becoming through this experience. And the person you're becoming wiser, more compassionate, more spiritually mature is someone worthy of any love the universe wants to manifest. Jung reminded us that life's objective isn't immediate happiness, but deep meaning. And the meaning you're extracting from this seemingly impossible experience is a treasure no one can take from you. You discovered you're capable of loving beyond ego limitations, beyond time, beyond circumstances. This is an extraordinary spiritual achievement. Trust the process. Honor the connection. Respect divine timing. Continue growing toward the person this experience is calling you to become. Because in the end, maybe this is the true union your soul always sought, not necessarily with another person, but with your own highest and most loving nature. And if someday circumstances align and you can be together, it will be because you both became people capable of honoring the depth of what you feel. It will be because you grew to the point where you can sustain a union based on spiritual recognition, not emotional need. It will be because you learned to love as mature souls love, with freedom, consciousness, and reverence for the sacredness of what you share. If this content touched something deep in you, if you recognize your own story in these words, please share it with someone who might need to hear this message. This way, I'll know the message reached where it needed to reach, in the heart of someone living this transformative experience of finding their person at the moment that seems wrong, but is actually perfectly right for the growth of both souls involved. And if this content truly moved you, you can support this work by sharing it with others who might benefit from this perspective. Every person who receives this message at the right moment in their journey makes all the difference. Thank you for walking with me this far. Until we meet again.